This conference will now be recorded.
Hello?
Yes, yes, you're good now. I hear you.
Yeah, I'm unable to hear the lecture.
As now is your voice is coming.
Yeah, it's audible now.
Yes. Hello, you mute now.
We cannot hear you, Shaurya, like if you are speaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, cool.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, fine.
Yes.
Continue, guys. Okay. So, okay. So when we are certifying that, okay, when we are doing a site certification, we are certifying that, okay, these many users will be able to access the application and all the SLAs that we have decided, it will be done within that. Okay. So in this one, the major concerns that we have is the latency and bandwidth that you should be watchful. Okay. So the tool that you see, I mean the start seeker, what you're seeing over here, it's basically a network monitoring tool. It can be any network monitoring tool that you can have in an organization. Okay, so you have to monitor that as well when you are doing when you are like testing any application internal network. Okay, over the internet you cannot control much, because once the request is out of your network, okay, it goes into a public network and we don't have much control. But whenever it's an internal application which is there in the internet network, we can control the network activities, what is happening in the network. So at that time that becomes a very crucial, which I mean monitoring that as well is very important. But what do you see as a performance tester? What can I see, what should I see as a network? So I mean you can create a thumb rule saying that in a network, when you are executing a load test or be any test, the network utilization should not go beyond 50%. Okay, the network utilization should not go beyond 50%. One thing. Second thing that you should be watchful is that in your power center you can configure latency. Okay, and we'll be also monitoring the latency. It should not happen that when there is no load, okay, right now there is, let's say there is no load and I'm hitting that application, I'm checking the latency. Okay, now if I'm checking the latency, I mean tomorrow we will discuss about I mean what is a response time, what is a latency. But on a high level, just think of it as when I'm hitting a request, okay, it went to the server, be it anything. I mean we'll ignore as of now like where it's going in between the network. From browser I hit one request, it went to the server, okay, and then the request got processed and I got a response, and the request came back, and I see whatever the request for which I will send the request. So this is the time it went required for processing the request and coming back to my again my machine, my browser, seeing the response time, seeing the response page. Basically is the whole duration is your response time. Okay, but what is latency? Latency is if you ignore all this processing part, going into the network, coming back, that's it. So if you are seeing that when you're executing the load test, the latency is around 10 seconds. Okay, but when you are not executing the load test and if you are just simply like hitting the normally without the load, you're trying to assess the application. When you are at that time, the latency is around 2-3 seconds, then that's a issue. Okay, you have to involve the network engineer at that time and start investigating that why it is taking so much of time. It should not happen. Okay, because the bandwidth at that time, you have to also see that during the load test, if the network bandwidth, okay, is going above beyond 50%, then also you have to highlight that, and the network engineer will start looking into that. Okay, so this is about the network when you are doing a site from a site location. But then there, let's say there are application, okay, there are application which is there in data center. Okay, so you can have two kind of data center dedicated. So this is for on-prem system. Okay, on-premise system which is managed by which can be managed by your company as well. Okay, or managed by some third party as well. And then you have Azure. Okay, no, let's say cloud computing. Okay, it can be Azure, it can be AWS, it can be IBM, it can be any Google also, but it's a SaaS solution. Okay, I've deployed everything on these servers and have to test the application. Now here, the only thing is that difference is that here internet comes into the picture. Okay, there obviously you when you're trying to access the any SaaS solution. Okay, uh, internet will come into the picture. Okay, so at that time you don't have a much control over your internet, that how it's been getting tuned. So at that time the analysis part, all that happens. Okay, analysis part that also happens will come. You have to use the proprietary tool that they are offering. So let's say if it's Azure, you can use Azure Monitor. If it's AWS cloud, so you can use CloudWatch for the analysis. Okay, and then you have to see the client side testing become very important at this stage, that you have to see that okay, when I'm accessing the application, once I hit on the request, how much time it's taking, because everything is managed by them only. Okay, everything is managed by them only. So once you hit the request, how much time is taking to navigate from one page to another, and you have to, I mean, share the results. And that time they will mostly not much metric that we can capture it. Okay, but from Azure, like whatever the metric or the performance issues that you see from Azure, let's say if you have a monitoring tool, you can obviously see from there that also. But if they are providing any inbuilt tool for monitoring, we can use that as well. Okay, and when you are doing it from a data center, okay, so this is my data center which is internal to my network, so LAN and WAN. It can be over the internet also. Okay, so they are like connected to the internet, but usually it's over the internal network only. At that time, again, your network will come into the picture, latency will be there. Okay, this is for the network part, and application tuning is there, that is a separate thing. Let's say we are seeing that there's a high response time due to some piece of code is getting taking longer duration of time, deadlocks are happening, GCs are happening too frequently. All these are application related issues. Okay, or let's say some hardware level and application related issues, you'll be able to find out on both the parts. Okay, but the latency and the network bandwidth that I talked about, you can give your inputs in on-prem system. Okay, in an on-prem system only, not on the cloud. Okay, and for monitoring tool, so monitoring tool will be which you'll be using, you can use any monitoring tool for monitoring. So those monitoring tool needs to be installed in the server. So this is data center where my database server, web server, and app servers are there. Okay, so you have to install that. So monitoring agent will be installed. So these are agent based tool. There will be one agent installed in that. Okay, and they will keep capturing the metric and sending it to their cloud. So if it's Datadog, so Datadog agent will be installed, and it will capturing all that metric and will send it to Datadog database, and that metric will be stored. Analytics will happen, and then you can see on their graphical user interface or web page, and then you can see all the metrics. Same goes for Dynatrace as well. We will see the Dynatrace architecture for Dynatrace. It's a little bit different. There we have one agent, but yeah, something similar happens there as well. Okay, so monitoring, agent-based monitoring, and if you can use app insight, so app insight, or you can monitor all the APIs that are getting sent to your servers, okay, database, web server, app server, okay, and then you can see how much time they are taking. If they get longer duration, obviously you can investigate more around that. Okay, so what are the key focus areas? So this is how execution will happen. Once all the executions is done, we will use our analyzer test, basically test analysis, to create the result, to find out the response time and all the metrics. And for the APM level monitoring, we can use the tools which is there given to us. Okay, so on if we talk about the what are the deliverables in this part, then when you're executing test, what are the metrics that you can share? Okay, so the first thing is your response time. Okay, throughput, end-to-end transaction response time or breakdown. Okay, site-wise response time, you can when I say site-wise response time, that means from Jacksonville, what is the response time, from Switzerland, what is the response time, from Portugal, what is the response time. You can have a location-wise breakdown as well. Okay, and then on a scenario based also, you can have a response time breakdown. Let's say that for the first scenario, the response time is this much. From second location, the response time is this much. For third location, what is the response is this much. And then you can bifurcate by location. Let's say for this five scenarios, the from Jacksonville, these are the response time. So you can also identify that, okay, the response time from Jacksonville, Switzerland, Portugal is okay. Okay, but we are having a issue from Manchester, we are having a high response time. Okay, they have to look at the errors from that point of view also. But if you take because when we see for the average will be given to us. Okay, so this is too high, then there might be issue from this location also. We have to investigate that this location might have some issue, because if it's a server issue, it's a configuration. It will be there for all the locations, not from a single location. That's why we always prefer to see it from a location wise as well. Okay, from a monitoring point of view, server availability, server should remain available. Okay, CPU utilization, memory utilization, disk input output operations. So when you are writing this, when your database IO is a very very crucial thing, because every time something happens, something is getting written to a database, something is getting fetched from a database. So input output operations that are happening, that happens very very fast. Okay, so it should be tuned properly, that while inputting it's good, while output it's not that good. So because that will increase my overall response time. Okay, and disk space, okay, it should have enough disk space, it should not get full quickly. Okay, now advanced monitoring. So let's say if you are doing any service monitoring, so let's say 10 services are running, they are going down, that should not happen. Okay, the processes that are running crucial to your application, that should run all the time, it should not crash. Okay, this is for the .NET application, so you can monitor IIS. Okay, so IIS count monitors you can set up, you can monitor that they are working fine. Then Tomcat should not go down, Tomcats are working fine. Then if you have Elasticsearch, okay, so distribution, shards distribution should happen. Do not get overwhelmed, some who doesn't know, but these are the advanced monitoring part. That varies from application to application. So these are for different applications. So service and process you can monitor for most of the application, but this is for any what do you call .NET application. These are monitor that you can use for Java application. If you have a Elasticsearch in your application, then only you can monitor it. Okay, then JVM, garbage collection, and database counters. These are things that as a part of our advanced monitoring that you can capture and share with the application team. Okay, and then comes the network. So I already talked about network, that we have to monitor the latency and the bandwidth. So bandwidth, it should not go beyond 50%, and latency you have to capture it before the test, after the test, and during the test. So you have to see that when you are running the actual load test, the latency should not go high. Okay, that should not happen. System should be configured in such a way that it should be able to cater to the load that is given to us. I mean, obviously that is because when the client is saying that okay, 300 users are coming up, they're asking us to in the application, they have already asked all the network guys also that okay, 300 users will come. Okay, tune the network in such a way that it should be able to cater. So they have designed a system which should be able to capture 300 users. Okay, so okay, but if you are seeing that okay, that when you're executing the actual load test, the network is going above 50% or latency is very high, then it's a issue. So they have to tune the system even more. Okay, so this is for the methodology, that how actually we are going to execute the test. Any doubts in this one? Any doubts, guys, before I move forward? Any doubts? No doubts. Okay, let's move forward. Now we have showed the client that what is our process, that how we work. Okay, then we have showed the methodology, that how we are going to test their system. Okay, when we are seeing that okay, we'll be generating virtual traffic, virtual users will be coming into the application. Okay, and then we'll be creating all that traffic. How actually we are doing that, how when you have how we are using my injector machines, how we are using Fusion to create the scripts, how we are using performance center to generate the traffic, how we are using the results for creating the results, we are using analysis as well as the monitoring tool. Okay, we have showed them everything. Okay, but the client wants to understand that what should be the trigger point. Okay, they are not performance experts. Okay, they are not performance experts, so we should simplify it in a simpler way, so that things that they should give them a quick idea that okay, now this is the time that I need to use performance testing, I have to employ performance testing to tune my application. Okay, so what are the trigger points? So wherever they see that okay, this is seems like a performance issue, or this is one of the trigger points for performance issue, and that application needs to be tested. Okay, so when the application, there is an increase in the user count. Okay, so let's say today I have certified for 100 300 users, and tomorrow I have 600 users on my application. Same build, same hardware configuration, everything is same. So whatever we have certified for 300, they have just taken into the production, and getting now they're getting used. Now the user count has increased. Okay, so they thought, okay, let me do one thing. Software, okay, it's good. Software part I don't need to worry about. For 300, this was hardware configuration. Let me just double it 2x, and this is the hardware. It should be able to cater. Now, is a good thing or is a bad thing? Can I comment like that? Okay, if I just do a 2x, it will be able to cater it. Guys, I'm just give your inputs if you feel like that. If I just do it a 2x, will it be able to cater it? Yes or no? People there. Yeah, people are there. Okay, the answer is yes and no. Yes, it can, maybe, not sure, not 100% sure. Okay, but how do you be 100%? You have to do a performance testing. Just do a one performance testing again, and you will be 100% sure that okay, fine, you actually need 2x. Okay, it can happen that you might not need 2x, you just need 1.5x also. That can also happen, right? We are not I mean, you don't need that many, that much amount of hardware, because the cost will involve. Okay, so as a trigger point, I can, if anybody asks you what should be, when should someone do a performance testing, first thing is there is an increase in the user count. Okay, now significant change in the code, that is a very very crucial thing. Okay, code changes that should definitely get tested. Okay, because we don't know how the code will perform. Okay, under the load, code, usually what I have seen from my experience is that the the app, they do some changes in the code. Manual testing pass, automation testing pass. In performance, under the load they will start behaving weirdly. Okay, under the load, when you put under that load and you are checking the functionality, it doesn't behave, it creates something, it creates some error start coming up. Okay, so whenever there is a significant code change in the code, but it needs to be performance tested. Increase in the data volume, what do you mean by this? Now, today I have tested an application. Okay, now understand this. People, can anyone tell me how uh, how do we interact with database? When we are saying that okay, there's a database server stores the data, I can understand this, but how it is interacting with the database, how we are interacting with the database? Anybody? Anyone? Tasha,
Well,
Tam, Padmashri, Anu,
whenever we are updating the data,
Manisha. Yeah, Manisha.
so whenever we are updating the data,
Correct.
making
Can
any
you speak?
changes, or putting in, for example, if we talk about APIs, putting in more
Mm-hmm.
data, so the DB gets updated, right?
Correct. Correct. So on database, when we are acquiring, we are just running the queries. Select from, star from. this table, okay, where id is 5, like that, a single query that I have written. Okay, so what will happen that today I have 10 entries in my database. This query will go, okay, and it will fetch me, it will check, okay, it will check the first column, it will check the second row, third row, fourth row, fifth row, it will got, okay, 10th row, this is the data, and it will give it to my app server. And further, I mean, things will, we will see tomorrow how it all happens. But all in a simple level, I can understand that as of now I have 10 entries, and it has to 10 only 10 rows. Okay, in a database, data gets stored in a form of table. Okay, in table we have rows and you have columns. So you have a id, okay, which is unique to all the users, then you have name, then you have addresses, something blah blah blah, things are there. But yeah, so when I have to find, let's say, Manisha, so Manisha id is 4. So I will say where id is 4, it will go to that particular row and will fetch my data for the Manisha. Okay, today when I'm doing the testing, when I'm doing the application testing, okay, so that's why read and write operation happens on a database. So IO comes into the picture, input output operations that are happening, okay, that comes into the picture. Now what happens, let's say today you have 10 entries, tomorrow you have 1 million entries. Okay, and the Manisha's data is the last entry, 1 millionth id. Now, will it go check one by one row, all the rows, and it will fetch my data? It will take time, right? Definitely will take more time than what it took for this one, right? That is a basic thing. So on a database, it doesn't take like that. We do indexing on this one, and sorting happens very very fast. But I can say that still, when you have 10 entries and you have 1 million data on the database, I can expect a slight increase in the database. Okay, I can see response time of the database. Let's say earlier it was giving me my response for the query that I was writing, it was giving me 0.00001 second. Now it's taking 0.001 second. Something like that can happen. Will it impact my system? Yes and no. Yes and no. We cannot be sure. It can, it may not be. So what happens is that obviously, when that question should pop up in your mind, and you should be asking that we keep on writing data, we keep on writing data on the database. So obviously it can happen that database will get full someday, right? That can happen. So how do you handle that? So what happens, guys, is that we do archival basically. Okay, so let's say we say that okay, fine, data which is older than 3 months, we move to another database. Usually we call them archival database. And in your application server, the query, this query is predefined. Okay, you will see that when you're in Dynatrace, no. So in that, when you're doing the application testing, you'll see the calls that are getting made, there's a query. So query has been written in such a way that if the id is 3 months old, we put a date clause there. We say that the date id is 3 months old, send the request to archival database, and this archival database has a higher performance. Okay, we choose it on a higher performance side, so that is IO input output operations are very very fast, indexing is been done, all those things, so that uh, query become faster. That's how we handle it. But I mean, what I'm trying to say here, that when we have 10 entries in my database, when you have 1 million entries in my database, I can expect a slight increase in the, I can expect a slight increase in the response time of my DBs basically. But how much it is, how do you quantify that? Okay, it will be a this much increase, or it will be a that much increase. Or that question also varies from how much data are existing data in the current production database, how much data the application team is planning to store. It can be 2 million also, that depends upon how they have designed the system. So will it impact the system? Again, we don't know. So in order to do that, in order to 100% to certify that okay, it will impact or it will not impact, you have to do a volumetric testing. That is what volumetric testing is. All there is a slight increase, so you have seen that okay, over the year there is a slight increase and they're not done the archiving of the data, then you should definitely go with ahead with the database testing. So what they do here, you do a performance testing on the application. When there is less data on the database, then the database team will put the dummy data into the system, which they expect that over the period of 1 year, this much data will be there in the will be there in. Give me a second, guys. Okay, just 2 minutes. Okay. Okay, so they will put some dummy data into your database, and then you can do the testing, and obviously you will see the difference, and then you can highlight that. So there will, if there is an increase in the database, definitely you should do the performance testing. Okay, next thing, new country or site rollout. Okay, so Google, no, let's not take Google. Let's take some other application. Which application? Let's take not Bharat. Some application, some e-commerce application. Okay, e-commerce application which is there for Indian users. Okay, so the application team, they have developed one application. I mean, the owners basically they have developed the application, and the user base is in India. Every user is using in India. Now they plan to expand their operations to Europe. Okay, now they plan to expand their operations to Europe. Now all the Europe traffic will also come here. Okay, so they are expecting that, okay, some 10 lakh 10 lakh users will come, more users will come, so they don't want this traffic to come to Indian users, Indian database. So they will do one thing, they will procure some database nearby to Europe. Okay, and they will deploy their application there. So all the traffic that will go to that nearest database. Okay, so obviously the latency will be lesser. Okay, if the request is coming from all the way from Europe, the latency will be higher, so we don't want that to happen. So they have decided, okay, that we will deploy the same application, same build, same configuration, okay, near Europe. But are they sure that will the whatever the user experience that the users are having in India will have the same experience in Europe? May or may not be. You cannot be sure. Okay, as the point, I mean, that is, I mean, the certification that we give is gives, it's like a stamp that, okay, this will hold, this will hold it. That's why certification, performance testing certification is very very important here. So we can do all the calculation, we can do all the permutation combination, that okay, if this is like that, this will hold there, like that. I mean, application team, everybody, architect also do those calculation. But it is job of performance tester to certify that, okay, it will hold. That's why performance testing is very very crucial nowadays. Okay, so if they are deploying in Europe, so definitely they should do performance testing to be 100% sure that it will hold. So if there is any new roles, new country or site rollout, they should definitely do a performance testing. Structural or infrastructure changes, if they are doing any changes in the hardware part, they are changing, let's say, to CPU, let's say CPU. So I'm not sure whether you know it. So CPU is like, CPU, when you are buying, like when you go for a, when you are, okay, so database need a higher input output operation. Application server doesn't need that, it needs good memory. Okay, so their disk size doesn't matter. So these are different configuration, different system, every different system has a different requirement. Okay, so you will, for app servers, you will take a server which is highly optimized for memory. But when you are going for any database server, you are taking a system which is highly optimized for disk operations. Okay, disk IO operations. Okay, now they are doing some changes here. Let's say today they are using standard. Okay, now to something new came up called premium came up. Okay, that will give a better performance. And they're expecting, okay, if I just change it to premium, I will change my hardware, I will see a better response time. Again, the answer is yes and no. Maybe it will help, maybe it will not help. So how do you certify that? You have to do a performance testing. Okay, so any hardware or structural changes, okay, be it anything into the into architect into your infrastructure or architecture, anything getting changed in a hardware level configuration, you should definitely go ahead with the performance testing. Okay, so what is the best practice? A best practice, business needs to be tested to test mission critical and business critical application minimum once a year. Okay, so what is the business and mission critical application? Anybody? Any idea? So business critical applications are applications which are basically, if they go down, nothing will happen on the application. Okay, and there are certain application which
Like
is important for
banking,
the
oh, sorry, I just like banking applications.
banking, correct. So banking application, when I so internal to banking, let's say you are saying banking application. Okay, so in banking application, I can do a lot of things, right? Today if I go into any application, banking application, in net banking, you can think about the net banking, there are certain different hundreds of module. Okay, now if the customer is not able to log in into the application, let's say I want to check my balance and I'm not able to check my balance, okay, then that's a issue. Customer will immediately escalate that, okay, I want to check my balance, I'm not able to check my balance. Okay, now user will start complaining. But let's say there is a option to generate for sending the money, that is also very very crucial. Okay, but let's say I have to do a pf, I can book a pf on my internet. So you can think of as functionalities without which the application itself become unprocessable. It's not it's not working properly. You can say the application is down, and there are certain application which helps with that system to work. Okay, additional functionality that has been given to you. So these are that become that you can call it as a mission critical. So if you can have you can absorb to have a downtime on this one, but you cannot absorb to have a downtime on this one. So if you have a downtime, you have a business loss. Another example that I can give a little, like, explain in a much better way. Think of any organization. Let's say if I am a company which create lift. Okay, I have a website where you can go and book your lifts, basically, the lifts that we have in our apartments or company. Okay, so if the application part or the application which is responsible for taking the orders, okay, payment and all, if this goes down, let's say, then I have a business loss. So that is a business critical application. Now, once the order is placed, there are hundreds of internal application. One will go to the billing department, one will go to the manufacturing department, one will go to the transportation department. Okay, one will go to the where the delivery needs to be made. All these different application, they are doing their job. Let's say any of the one of them has gone. Okay, that should not impact much. I mean, obviously it will. That is also a business loss, but if the transportation is down, it's okay, because it's still in the process of manufacturing. The product is getting assembled, so by that time you can absorb to have a little downtime there. But if the application which is taking orders and all, if that is down, you are having a business loss. Customer will go to a different different company and will buy out the product. So these are business critical application. You cannot have a downtime on this application. Okay, so any other, but still we say that any of the application which is business critical and mission critical, you should have get performance testing done at least once a year into your application. Okay, so at least one of the if at least one of the following conditions are satisfied for your application, it would be a wise choice to do performance testing now than never. Simple. So this is a good thing that anybody can ask you in interviews also. Okay, and I mean, now you also got a very very good clarity then when performance testing needs to be triggered. Okay, any doubts in this one, anyone? Any doubts till whatever we have discussed? So we have discussed about the process, we have discussed about the methodology, we have discussed about the trigger points. Any doubts in this one? We are running out of time today, so tomorrow we will discuss the different kinds of test. Okay, and then we will discuss the areas where we can create impact. I mean, so in any application there are different layers. So there is a client layer, there's a network layer, there's a server layer, there's a database layer, there's an internet layer, and there's the external system, my system. Let's say if I'm accessing from my system any internet application, so that is my system, right? External system. So where the system where we can analyze and optimize the system, and where we can just do the analysis. Okay, so we will see that tomorrow. Then different kind of test, and where why it's been defined such a manner, and why and what is the methodology to in order to do the testing. This is okay. This is on a high level. Okay, this is on a high level. So but let's say tomorrow somebody says that what should be the increase in the user count, so we will quantifying it in a much better way tomorrow. But till now, any doubts in this one? Process, methodology, and trigger points. Let me ask everybody one by one. Bindu, Manisha, Tasha, Tame, and Padmashri and Arun. Any doubts?
I'm good.
Okay, cool guys. Any? If not, we will continue tomorrow. Let me stop my sharing. God.